Welcome to Gamecock Pod Live.
For the next 3 to 4 years, I'll be committed to the University of Gamecock.
This is Rodgers again to the 25, 20, 15, 10. Rodgers scores! Ball better than Jackie Bradley Jr. delivered for the Gamecocks. Lost it up, looking for Kelly. Touchdown! Can you believe?
Welcome to Gamecock Pod Live.
For the next 3 to 4 years, I'll be committed to the University of Gamecock.
This is Rodgers again to the 25, 20, 15, 10. Rodgers scores! Ball better than Jackie Bradley Jr. delivered for the Gamecocks. Lost it up, looking for Kelly. Touchdown! Can you believe it?
And South Carolina is sending shockwaves through the SEC.
Frederick plays it in at the buzzer. That's a win! Unbelievable! I don't believe it!
And now, live from Studio 54 of the Gamecock Pod Studios, here's the Cockfather himself, Keith Alsep.
All right, everybody. Welcome into Gamecock Pod Live. Little technical difficulties here to start the show. This is Gamecock Pod Live for March the 11th, episode number 1969. And we have got a great show on tap today. In just a few minutes, we will be joined by my good friend Alex Jones from thebigspur.com. We will discuss the decision to retain Lamont Paris. I will read Jeremiah Donati's statement, and I'll tell you what I really think that means. But first, let's jump into our Nana's Porch news notes and headlines. Last night, South Carolina baseball fell at the Citadel in Charleston 8-3. Gamecock scored 1 in the first, Citadel 2 in the bottom of the first. The game was tied at 2. Carolina took the lead, and it was pretty much a seesaw affair. But then the Citadel got 2 in the fourth and 3 in the bottom of the 8th to win 8-3. And another bad mid-week loss for Gamecock baseball as they get ready to begin SEC play this weekend against the Florida Gators, who damn near got swept by High Point. They had to score 6 runs in the last 2 innings to get a 12-11 win. South Carolina softball team, they're struggling mightily to start the season. Just 15-10. They fell at home 6-2 to Duke last night. And tonight, the Gamecocks, 13-18 and 4-14, will face the 11 seed Oklahoma, 17-14, 7-11 in SEC play. The Sooners have won 6 of their last 8 games. That game will get underway at around 9:30 p.m. on the SEC network with Tom Hart and Dane Bradshaw on the call. Couple more news items, and then we're getting ready to bring in, we'll go ahead and bring in Alex for these. My good friend Will Lawing, the son of one of my best friends in the whole wide world, Brad Lawing. He is leaving Boston College and going back to the National Football League as an offensive assistant with Ben Johnson and the Chicago Bears. I know Brad is looking down with a big smile on his face and just nodding his head on that one. And then Gamecock punter Kai Kroger, great news for him. Traded from the New Orleans Saints to the Houston Texans, where he gets to still punt in a dome, but for a much better football team. Alex, welcome in. How are you this morning, my friend?
I'm doing great. Good morning to everybody out there, and hope everybody's having a good start to the day.
So it's got to feel good this week at spring break. You don't have to be out at the proving grounds. You don't have to go to all the interviews this week. You just get to, I mean, it's kind of like the off season again.
A little bit, yeah, but then, got into a rhythm last week with practice and the press conference schedule. Then it's right back to off season, it feels like. But, it'll be kicking back into gear. And not that it hasn't been a very newsy week anyway.
Always a newsy week. And so let's start with that. I guess John Whittle prepared us for this on Monday night in the VIP room. And so I just want to say this to all the people that are coming down hard on Jeremiah Donati, calling him do nothing, Donati, etc. So let's break it down. All right. Like personally, in a perfect world, I think Lamont Paris should have been fired. But Ray Tanner, after one really good season, gave him a huge contract with a big buyout. Okay, so the buyout is $12 million, plus you got to buy out his staff. Yeah. Then you got to hire a new coach, which you got to give at least a $30 million contract to. Plus you probably got to pay that buyout, not to mention give him one of the highest paid coaching staffs in the country. So all you're talking over $50 million. Okay. Not all at once, but you're on the hook for that. So
yeah.
Just your thoughts on that. Then I'm going to read the statement from Donati. I'm going to tell you what I think it means, and then I'll get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that was always the point you brought up. Was always kind of the question I had was if you did move on from Lamont Paris, then as you mentioned, you're buying out his contract, you're buying out his staff's contract, you're paying for the new head coach. What does NIL look like for the new head coach in year one? Because that's a lot of money you're already spending on all that other stuff. Is it? And then I think the question became: is it worth it to that money that you would have used for a buyout? Is it worth it to throw it all to NIL for Lamont Paris and see what he can do in year one? And it kind of seems, and obviously that's what with the way this one went.
No doubt. All right, so here is the statement from Jeremiah Donati. Quote, Gamecock Nation deserves a winning men's basketball program. I understand the frustration and disappointment following the results of the last two seasons. Coach Paris can win here and has proven it. He led the program to an NCAA tournament appearance in just his second season and was named the 2024 SEC Coach of the Year after tying a single season program record with 26 wins. He has proven he can win throughout his coaching career. Quote, our goal is to build a men's basketball program at South Carolina that is consistently competitive in the SEC and nationally. To reach that goals, it will require an increased level of investment across the program that matches these expectations. We are committed to making these critical investments. Additionally, it requires an ongoing assessment and evaluation to ensure we are moving forward and making the necessary improvements. Alongside these investments, it is my expectation that we will see significant improvements in the short term. And then he finishes it with, I want to assure our fans and constituents. I thought that was a word generally reserved for politicians. But anyway, that we will put in the work to make this a program you are proud of year in and year out. It is a rapidly changing collegiate athletics landscape, but we welcome that challenge and opportunity. All right, so other than the fact that it's going to be too much money to buy you out, Lamont, here's where I look at it. It requires an ongoing assessment and evaluation to ensure we are moving forward and making the necessary improvements. To me, that part means there are going to be massive coaching changes on that staff. I think Tanner Bronson, Eddie Shannon, maybe the other dude that had coached with Frank Martin, Will Bailey, Kerry Rich. I think most all of them are going to be gone. And honestly, I said it the day he got hired. If he brought his entire coaching staff with him from UT Chattanooga, which he did, some of them just had to move off the court into other positions. He wasn't going to make it. And he's kept those guys, and 1 year out of 4, they've had a good year. The other 3 years have been historically horrific seasons. You can overlook the first year. All Frank Martin's guys hit the portal. You did get G.G. Jackson. You didn't have very much else. Meechie Johnson came in. 11-21, 4-14. Then you had the anomaly thus far of a season, 26-8, 13-5. You got B.J. Mack, who is from Charlotte. You got him from Wofford. Talon Cooper got tired of freezing his behind off in Minnesota. He came home from Dorman. Colin Murray Boyles, Meechie Johnson, okay, and then some of the guys that had stayed on the team. You had a really good team. But then you bottomed out. Meechie left. Colin Murray Boyles came back. Even Meechie Johnson left, which I thought was almost a kiss of death for Paris. I mean, Alex, think about all those close losses in the best year ever for the SEC. 14 teams made the NCAA tournament, and Carolina lost they got blown out a few times, but they lost a lot of close games that Meechie Johnson really could have made a difference in. All right, then this year, what do you have? 13, 14 new players with counting Meechie coming back, and you go 4-14. So that's 3 of the 4 years you've gone 4-14, 2-16, and 4-14. Lamont Paris in 4 years is 25-49 in SEC play, and if you counted the tournament games, it would easily be he's lost 2 of every 3 games. So The investment means more NIL money. I think in the 10 to 13 to $15 million range. I think the ongoing assessment and evaluation means we're going to get some guys in here that can really coach basketball.
And
your thoughts?
I think with the expected increase in NIL investment, I think also, kind of what that says to me is got to evaluate better from a transfer portal, because you think about it this year, like they have some misses from a transfer portal standpoint with how they use their money, and with that increased money, you got to use it the right way. I mean, especially in the post, they miss some guys at guard. Like obviously, as you mentioned, staff changes. We'll see what happens there, but I think there's just got to be a way of evaluating better, because that's been one struggle that's led to some of these struggles.
Yeah, I mean, I did not like the roster building. Like, I was okay with Jordan Butler coming back. He's at least got some ability, but then you spend all your money on Chris Asandiko in the post. Norden Kapich, who got north of $500,000 to sit on the bench all year. Elijah Strong, who was like to shoot threes more than anything else. I mean, you brought Michi back and you got Mongolian Mike and Kobe Knox, hit or miss. That was really it. And then you also invested a lot in your freshman class, and you redshirted Cam Scott, which, unless there's some hidden injury, I don't know what was up with that. Abu Yarma, you took him, you redshirted him. Grant Polk, at least he can shoot it. Eli Ellis is what I thought he would be, undersized. He's going to struggle against athletic backcourts. I mean, this was really like a Southern Conference roster, not a Southeastern Conference roster. And that starts at the top with Paris, but it also filters down to the assistant coaches. And look, I'm prejudiced. I've always been a big Rod Terry guy. He's from the Rick Barnes coaching tree, and from my friend Jerry Wainwright, who, when he was at UNC Wilmington, he had Rodney Terry and Brad Brownell. Those were his assistant coaches.
That's a good staff.
That was pretty good staff. Yeah. Rod Terry went to work for Rick Barnes. He wound up getting a interim head coaching job at Texas. They never really gave him much of a chance. And honestly, if the post player doesn't get hurt when he took over as interim, they would have probably won the national championship.
Yeah.
He would be my first call. Okay. Earl Grant just got fired at Boston College when Florida State, when their coach resigned. Steve Smith, who was at Clemson a long time and then at Florida State, a great grizzled veteran recruiter, knows the ACC and the SEC footprint. And Earl Grant. Those are three guys right off the top of my head that I would probably be targeting. I mean, I think Earl Grant probably wants another head coaching job. And if Chris Mack gets the Georgia Tech or the Pitt job, I could certainly see Earl Grant going back to College of Charleston. But if you could get Rodney Terry and Steve Smith, I think that those would be huge upgrades. I never thought that those guys were going to lead him to being a consistent NCAA caliber team. So
Yeah, Earl Grant's one that's crossed my mind, and not that I've heard that being a possibility, but just one that's crossed my mind. I think you kind of hit it though, like, what's he looking for his next job? Is he looking for a head coaching job? But he's one that obviously has South Carolina ties, has been around the state for a lot of his career. So he's one that Rodney Terry, I think you could also throw in that same kind of category too, of like what's he looking for in that next job. Like that, I would think he'd have some opportunities as a head coaching position too, just from what he was able to do in his career. Like, he, for one, I like listening to him on TV too, and some of the broadcasts. I think he's really good. You can really hear his knowledge of the game through TV. But those two, I think, would be interesting just from a, what are they looking for in their next job? Would they want an assistant type of job, or they want to get back into the head coaching ranks?
I agree, but to me, those are phone calls you need to make, because I think you need somebody that's had head coaching experience, somebody that can really help you with every aspect of the program, that can evaluate, that has recruited at the highest level. And I think a guy like Rodney Terry really fits that bill. If he can get a head coaching job, I think he's definitely going to take it. But, if you bring him in for 1 year and then it still doesn't work out, Rodney Terry might be a head coach in the Southeastern Conference. I think all this means is we're getting ready to give you the resources. We're going to give you the staff. And then if you don't win, then you're getting fired next year.
Yeah, and I think to add on to the evaluation part of it, you got to find, if there is a staff opening and things like that, you've got to find somebody who has had success from the transfer portal standpoint too. This isn't obviously going to be a, building it through the high school ranks. Like, you got to find somebody who can help you, one, just with the whole evaluation process, but two, who's been successful in the transfer portal, because that's where this roster flip is going to come from.
No doubt about it. All right, Alex. So we've had the first week of spring practice. Like you said, you were getting in a rhythm. now you got a week off. Next week, You got to get back into the rhythm, into the flow of things. And so I guess, obviously, with the news that Jacarius Peak has the patellar tendon issue, hopefully it's just a partial tear. Beamer optimistic he will be back. I mean, Beamer's generally optimistic about every injury that they'll be back, except he did concede Josiah Thompson they knew he was always going to have this surgery to get to 100%. And if he did, when he did choose to have it, he was probably going to miss the season. And so they decided to do it. And so those are the two guys that have power 4 left tackle experience on your roster. So at least for spring practice, and maybe even for fall practice, I mean, you're definitely not going to have Josiah Thompson this year. He's out for the year. What about if Jacarius Peak, if he's not going to be ready, who is going to be the left tackle on opening day, and who are the top candidates to fill that position if you take Jacarius Peak and Josiah Thompson off the board?
Yeah, I've thought about that from a tackle standpoint, obviously. And, I think a Dane Arnett could be interesting there. Seth Smith is one that I think we wanted to keep an eye on, a guy that played some left tackle at Northern Arizona. Now, obviously, with both of those guys, there's going to be jumps from a competition level with Dane Arnett being at Ferris State and Seth Smith being at Northern Arizona. Maybe, I like a Damola Adjadahan. Like, he's a guy that I think could be more in that right tackle standpoint, but I think he's going to have a chance in this tackle competition for both sides of it. I think ideally with Kojo Poku, like, he's a guy that you want to play on the inside. But yeah, he showed at ECU he can play on the outside. Same thing with Shed Surratt, but Shed Surratt, I think right now with those injuries, I think you kind of have to keep him outside of that tackle spot because he showed he could do it last year at right tackle in some games. So that's a few names that I would think of there. Armando Neves is another one that New Mexico State had some success there at the tackle position. So I think it's one of those where they built the depth at that spot from the transfer portal, then also got thrown Ashton Mazzone too, the JUCO recruit that South kind of got from Iowa Western. He's one that's played some tackle too. So there's some depth there, but I think spring practice now, this is going to kind of be like, all right, who's going to take that step to be where you're in that too deep or even in the starting rotation? Like there are options there, but now it's just kind of the evaluation process of those guys.
So what about Zion Giles? Could he be a right tackle? Or I know at one point Rivals had him as the number one interior offensive lineman in the country. And of course, 24/7 Sports has Darius Gray. He's a 5-star as an offensive guard. If Shed Surratt is staying outside at tackle, I think those guys have got to compete inside.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think at center, it's going to be Carter Miller and Nolan Hay.
Yeah.
I don't know who number 3 would be. Maybe Darius Gray. At guard, I really think you want Emmanuel Poku at right guard.
Yep.
I don't know. Is it Hank Purvis at left guard? Is he the backup right guard? I think the last time we were on here, we talked about my guy, Abu Bedeke Nabugu from,
Missouri State.
Missouri State. Yeah, Missouri State. He's played left tackle, but at 6'2", maybe 6'2.5" or 6'3", he's probably going to be a guard, but I mean, he was squatting 610 pounds like it was nothing. And he started at left tackle in that league, the Sun Belt. He was the top-rated pass blocker. I really think he could be a guy at that left guard spot now. I mean, ideally, I think you'd want Shed Surratt there. But if Surratt has to go out to right tackle, I think Nabugu could be a great fit. What are your thoughts?
It feels like, the best option for the offensive line as a whole with all 5 guys is if somebody steps up at a right tackle spot where Shed Surratt can't play on the interior. But I do am intrigued by some of the options. I mean, we've talked about Boo and what he can do. Like, he's a guy that can play both on the interior and at tackle. Like, I think I like him better on the interior. But I think, another guy like Marquis Anderson, like is he ready to take that next step? Blake Franks is still there too. Is he ready to take that next step? Hank Purvis is interesting. Like, I think I like some of the stuff he did at Purdue, and a guy that's an older, veteran offensive lineman that's been in a few programs. I think, watch out for him too. So, like, there are some options there for those guard spots, but like the key, I think, is going to be kind of to watch that right tackle spot to see what happens there, and especially with Shed Surratt. I think he's the key. Like, I think we feel, you feel pretty confident that Shed Surratt, if all things go well and he takes that next step, is going to be probably playing on this offensive line. It's just where. And I think if they can find somebody for that tackle spot where he can slide inside, that's only going to help.
See, I'm with you, and I think ideally you would have Seth Smith and Dane Arnett as placeholders at that left tackle until Peak comes back, and then Damola Adjadon wins that right tackle spot, which would shift Shed Surratt in to guard. And then all of a sudden, Shed Surratt at left guard, Emmanuel Poku at right guard, Carter Miller at center, and then a guy like Jacarius Peak and Damola Adjadon at tackles. I think that offensive line right there is cooking with grease.
Yeah, I really like Damola, and I think he was a guy that obviously I think we talked about it last week, but they liked him coming out of high school. I mean, Brent Key knows what he's looking for in offensive lineman, and South Carolina was able to flip him from Georgia Tech. He got some reps last year too. There was some trust there from the coaching staff where he was an extra offensive lineman or played some right tackle in some games. So I think it's just going to be him taking that next step. But physically, I think he looks like he's taking a step there too, which is a big part of it. So I think he's another kind of key piece to watching this that maybe isn't getting talked about enough.
No doubt. All right, so Coach Randy Clements, he got some social media love last week with some of the drills from the Cube Show. My guy Cole Kublick from the SEC, fellow Domer. Gotta love the Domers. He's remaking that offensive line. Seth Smith, first-round draft pick, All-American at Baylor, played in the NFL, working with him, Sam Survey. So now you got the skill players. You got this Kendall Briles, NASCAR, up-tempo, kind of hybrid offense that he's taken what his dad does. He's taken some of what Lane Kiffin does, and then some of just the things that he's picked up over the years. And he's got Lenore Sellers at quarterback. And I think, over the weekend, Pete Nakos had an article talking about the $40 million roster and the teams that were spending the most. And obviously Lane Kiffin and LSU and Texas Tech, everybody mentioned those two right off the bat. But then when they started asking, who are some of the teams you really like their transfer portal classes the most? South Carolina mentioned in the top 5 by some coaches as having one of the best transfer portal classes and classes that they like the most. And I think South Carolina was able to spend that much money because they didn't have to spend $10 million or more on a transfer portal quarterback. So you got Lenore Sellers, you got Cutter Woods, you got Landon Duckworth, you brought in a depth piece and an athletic guy from Bowling Green and Lucian Anderson, whose dad played at Georgia. He's from Athens. I think that's where that's the head of the table, so to speak, for Kendall Briles. But then, and I'm not saying there's a Rocket Sanders or an Xavier Legette, but if you look at the numbers and the talent at running back and wide receiver, there is an abundance of talented guys at those skill positions around Lenore Sellers, which makes it even more incumbent to get that offensive line right. But your thoughts on what you've seen and heard about Kendall Briles and the comfort level that Lenore Sellers is feeling with this offense?
Yeah, I think, he and Kendall Briles have clicked, which is something that you want to hear, obviously, early on in spring practice. And I think you have to like the potential of what a Kendall Briles offense can do for Lenore Sellers. Just he kind of talked about it where, I think just getting comfortable, but then when things aren't there, use your legs. Use what made you really good in 2024. And obviously we talked about it a lot, but just didn't see enough of that last year, which I think, getting Lenore Sellers into a rhythm again, the offense into the rhythm. Like he mentioned in his press conference the other day about how that was one of the struggles last year was he just could never get into a rhythm. I think this Kendall Briles offense, like we've seen him do that with some of these quarterbacks like a KJ Jefferson and guys like that. He can get guys into a rhythm early. So I think that's going to be intriguing, kind of see how that continues to grow. But to your point on the wide receivers and running backs, so there's the guys that they're bringing back at wide receiver. Then you add a Jaden Gibson and Nitro Tuggle, who I think if Tuggle can take that next step, I think he could be really fun in this offense to watch with what you saw from his high school tape and some of the things he's able to do at Purdue. So that's going to be an interesting spot to watch with Donovan Murray, Jaden Sellers, all those guys coming back. And then running back, I think, offensive line's a spot that everybody talks about, but like running back is a spot that's really intriguing to watch in spring practice just because Stan Drayton completely rebuilt that room. I mean, it was one that needed to be because they haven't signed a high school running back in 2 classes. And I think now you kind of, which is just crazy that that's happened, but now you kind of built that room in the transfer portal where it's pretty evenly balanced, where you got some young guys who kind of served as your high school signees with a Jabri Coleman, who I think could be intriguing to watch too. Sam Williams, Dixon, those guys kind of serve as your high school backs, but then you got Matt Fuller, who's coming back, who you liked what you saw. Jawarn Howell, Isaiah Augustov was a guy that in the one practice I got to watch, or we got to watch, like he was a physical standout for me. Like I was watching that running back group and had to figure out who number 4 was because I forgot he changed his number. But good physical standout from him. But I think Christian Clark is kind of the guy to watch in that room. Like he's really, really intriguing. A guy that was highly recruited, guy that at Texas was behind guys coming off of an Achilles injury, but we've talked about it before. Really loved what you saw from him in that the bowl game against Michigan. So I think he's got a chance to be in that starting conversation along with a few of those other guys. But it's an intriguing room, and he's got a lot of different options to work with in that room because they kind of built it out through the transfer portal and kind of came down to it when you could get a Christian Clark that late in the process, even with already having 5 running backs, which is kind of your ideal number from our scholarship wise. Being able to get a Christian Clark in there is just kind of the cherry on top.
No doubt about it. And I think here's another thing to look at is, with Kendall Briles, it's not going to be 2 or 3 wide receiver sets. It's going to be a lot of 3 and 4 wide receiver sets. And so more wide receivers are going to be given more opportunities at South Carolina. So when you look at it and you've got Donovan Murph coming back, you've got Nitro Tuggle, Jaden Gibson, DJ Black. Let's not forget him, very productive at UCF and a 10-500 meters guy in track. Then you've got Nick Harbor, you got Malik Clark, Jordan Gidron, and then at the inside or the slot position, you got Jaden Sellers, Maceo Bennett, Lex Cyrus, and I'm not even going to count out Jackson Rapp, who's a guy that ran back-to-back 4.25 handheld 40 times at camp. So, when you're going to have 3 and 4 wide receivers on the field a good bit, along with either 6 offensive linemen or a tight end, Brady Hunt, Mo Brown, Mike Tyler. I mean, there's a lot of different options and a lot of guys that Lenoir Sellers is going to be able to throw the football to.
Yeah, I think you at that wide receiver spot, like some of those guys I mentioned earlier, but you mentioned Malik Clark and Jordan Gidron, like guys that are in that big freshman class who were behind some guys that had to redshirt, but are they guys that can take that year 1 to year 2 jump? Like I think Malik Clark's been off to a good start there. You have to remember with Jordan Gidron, like he's still so young. Like he was a junior that reclassified basically. Like he's still so young and still developing from a physical standpoint, but has that speed there that you mentioned. But then DJ Black's the guy. Like, can he end that his high school career kind of as like be kind of a storybook way where you walked on at South Carolina, played at Limestone, went to UCF, and kind of took that jump. And now can he take that next jump and end it in his final year back in his home state? So there's a lot of different options there now. It's just like who's going to work their way into that rotation, because I think that's something else that's going to be intriguing to watch too in this Kendall Briles offense is what do rotations look like, whether it be during drives, because they don't want to sub a whole lot when they get drives moving in this offense. They want to keep that ball moving. They don't want to have the referee step in to let the defense sub. Like they want to keep this thing moving. So I think that's going to add even more competition to that room, because guys there could be limited reps from drive to drive.
No doubt. All right, so let's take a quick peek over to defense, where outside of Deion Barnes replacing Sterling Lucas, it's status quo on that side of the ball. Travian Robertson returns to the field, which I think is really big. And so at the edge position, and I really think this is a positive, is even though Dylan Stewart, George Wilson, Quay Dodd, and Kobe Saki Pra are limited or out for spring, that just gives Caleb Herring, Julian Walker, Anthony Addison, and Drew Collins all the reps at defensive end, or edge, they call it now.
Yeah, I think that's one, like, the name to kind of keep an eye on there would be Julian Walker, just from a rep standpoint. Like, yeah, I think he's one that physically, I mean, everybody's seen the videos and all that. Like, he looks like a junior already from a physical standpoint. So I think these increased reps that he's going to get from his spring practice due to those injuries will be, kind of interesting to watch, see how he develops. But Anthony Addis is another one too. Like, I think those reps are really going to help him. Like, you always kind of, hear and see the motor that he plays with. Now it's just getting those technical things down from a run block, a run defense standpoint, because I think he can rush the passer really well with his speed, kind of like a Brian Thomas Jr. did. That size and speed, but now it's just getting that run defense, stopping down, things like that. But then Caleb Herring, I think that's just going to be another one where, even with Dylan Stewart down, but just kind of getting that chemistry down, because you have to imagine he's going to be in the top 2 of that rotation, if not the starter in that rotation. So the more reps for those guys, the better. And then you kind of hope some of those guys who are limited, like a Quay Dodd or a Kobe Saki, probably those guys can kind of get some reps in there, because they'll need more, because they like to rotate that spot so much that they're going to need all those guys to be ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, a guy like Dylan Stewart, it's your job to get him into the season opener,
right,
100% completely healthy. He doesn't need to practice every rep every day. Okay, no. As Brad Lawism is, people be complaining. Well, Travian Robertson, Melvin Ingram, they're not practicing a whole lot. Kelsey Quarles, Brad's like, Keith, Bo, those guys don't need to practice every day. It's my job to get them to season opener 100%. They got to be healthy.
They need to show. Yeah.
That's right. They're proven SEC players. Yeah. That's right. So don't get your panties in a wad about Dylan Stewart being limited. Okay, we all know what he can do. Okay, so is every offensive lineman. That's why they hold him on every damn play. All right, so. Alex, so inside at defensive tackle, so there are 2 returning guys that played I like a lot. Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy by far played the most reps he'd ever played in a season. He battled some injuries, but you could clearly see why this guy was a 5-star recruit. I think he is a force. I think his conditioning needs to be better. His durability needs to be better. Like, in the NFL, they say your best trait is your availability. That's your best ability is your availability. You got to be healthy. But then I also love Christian Ingram. I know we're not going to see Caleb Williams. Those are redshirt freshmen. I mean, I will again say you beat Michigan, Southern Cal, and Kentucky for Christian Ingram. And after Caleb Williams committed, Georgia and a bunch of other really good schools offered him. Okay. And so I really like Troy Pikes. Like, he really came on towards the end of the season. You could see that Tonka Hemingway type of ability to be disruptive in the backfield, the initial burst, to get off. All right, now you go in the transfer portal and you get Tomiwa Dirojaye, who is a guy that Carolina recruited out of high school. Jimmy Williams didn't like him. That's why I think Jimmy Williams is back at Western Kentucky right now. Or Jimmy Smith, maybe that was his name. But then, so you get Dirojaye, who by all accounts, from what I'm hearing, is very similar from a size and speed twitchiness as a former defensive end to a TJ Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
You get Jordan Thomas, who's a bigger 6'5", 315 guy who's been at Georgia for the last 2 years that you recruited out of New Jersey. And then you get Kelby Collins the third time around, which also led to you getting his brother, Drew Collins. And then you've got these two completely different dudes coming in at the freshman class. And Aiden Harris, who's 6'2" or 6'3", about 285, who was unblockable in the All-America Bowl in San Antonio. And then you get essentially the Smoky Mountains in Noah Clark, 6'5", 340 pounds. And, to quote Jones Andrews' dad, the first time he saw Sparky Woods' staff, they recruited this big offensive lineman named Kevin Wade, and he was like 6'6", 340. Jones Andrews' dad is like, my Lord, he's as big as a dormitory. And Noah Clark is, I don't know if he is quite as big as 650 Lincoln, but he is a mountain of a man, and evidently he has got, some quick twitch ability, and at 6'5", 340, he carries that weight very well.
Yeah, I think with both of those guys, with Aiden Harris and Noah Clark being kind of different, sizes and frames and things like that. When you look at Noah Clark, like you watch his high school film from when he was at CE Durham, like he was a guy that he has that size, but he can get east-west with the best of them. Like he can chase guys down. Like he can really move. And I think for both of those guys now, it's just kind of reshaping the body and things like that. Things that freshman defensive linemen or freshmen that are on the lines of scrimmage have to do. All freshmen have to do. But I mean, those guys, it's going to be interesting because they, are those guys, can they break into that rotation? Because there's going to be, good quality competition in that room with the guys that we mentioned before. But you kind of see when you look at the roster and, look at the sizes, they've kind of, I think, hit that sweet spot of guys where they kind of want in that TJ Sanders, Tonka Hemingway mold. They got a few guys in that range. Then they also got the Gabe Brownlow Dendy's guys like a DeAndre Jules a few years ago who was just those guys can go in and just be run stoppers. But, Troy Pikes, I think that guy you mentioned was really coming on last year, and the guy that kind of has that TJ Sanders kind of mold where just that quickness, but has the strength to get past those interior offensive guards. But then, Tamira Durajai, there's a reason that guy was so highly ranked in the transfer portal. Like he's a guy that I think is also right in that same kind of Tonka Hemingway mold that you mentioned. Jordan Thomas, I think, one that if they can tap into his potential, that's another one. There's a reason Georgia really liked him and got him away from South Carolina in the high school recruiting process. Like South Carolina was right there, but Georgia got in there and got him. Like they can, if Travian Robinson can tap into that potential, he's another one to watch in that room. Like when you're looking through all these different spots, both offense and defense, like if you're choosing the spots that you feel the best about, like defensive tackle is going to be right up there in that room just because of the depth in that room. But you also feel really good about the starting capability of those guys and the quality that those guys can give you because it feels like it's closer to what that 2024 D tackle room looked like.
I mean, no doubt. And you got more of them.
Which would only help the edge room, too, when those guys are playing the way they could potentially play.
That's right, because whether it's Gabriel Brownlow Dendy or DeRozier or maybe even a Noah Clark or Christian Ingram coming in there at that nose spot, and then, DeRozier, I think he could play three technique there with Pikes and also with Aiden Harris.
And I completely forgot to mention Kelby Collins in that group.
And Kelby Collins, that's right.
That's got SEC experience. And, I talked to him at the transfer media day. Like, he wants this to be his best year. And that's something that you see with South Carolina's had some success with guys on the line of scrimmage who turn in their best years statistically. So they get to like his potential too.
No doubt. So at linebacker, you return your top three guys, Justin Okoronkwo, Fred J.R. Johnson, Sean Murphy. Donovan Darden's probably the fourth guy. And then you've got other depth pieces, Josh Smith, A.J. Holloway, Andrew Harris, and the freshman linebacker from Alabama, Keenan Britt. Those guys will probably be able to redshirt. At corner, Judge Collier and Bakari Swain, I think those are most likely your two starters. You got DeMarcus Leach and Jalewis Solomon and Koski Barnes. Those are three guys for two backup spots. You can never have enough guys there. I think at nickel, Quaysheed Scott, Jaquel Hallman, Sabari Sandy, Kelvin Hunter. But the safeties is where it really gets interesting for me. Yep, Gerald Kilgore's back. David Busey's back. Peyton Williams is back. But Kendall Daniels Jr. played a bunch. He and Jazavian Currents, they are just different looking dudes. They're both 6'4", 210 pounds. Tristan Lewis is 6'3.5", 210 pounds. You know, Peyton Williams, David Busey, even Gerald Kilgore, they're like 6 foot, maybe 6'1". You know, Chris Hatfield, that's another bigger dude, 6'3", about 210 or 15 pounds. How do you, and to me, that's the biggest storyline. I think backup corner and who backs up Quaysheed Scott at the nickel. But I think those safety positions, you have older guys and then you have really talented, younger guys that are just more upside, more size, athletically speaking.
Yeah, starting at that corner spot, I think, if you're penciling in a depth chart, I think you feel good about Judge Collier and Bakari Swain being the starters at those corner spots. But, I think a guy that maybe gets forgotten about a little bit and shouldn't is DeMarcus Leach. He's one that he got some early reps. Played against Virginia Tech in game one. When Judge Collier was bad on that injury, that knee injury he was, he was getting some reps. I think that's only going to help him. I think he's going to be somewhere in that rotation. They'll rotate 4 or so at that corner spot. They like to keep those guys fresh. So I think he could be in there. But Koski Barnes is a guy that the junior year to senior year took a very big jump at Grimsley High School, a state championship program. He took a big jump there, and you saw that from a ranking standpoint where he ended up. But just looks like a Torian Gray cornerback already at that 6'1", 6'2" kind of range. So that he's at. So I think just how quickly can he, make the adjustment to the college level is going to be key to watching him. I think he can give them something. If not at that corner spot, at a special teams spot too, because they like to throw those freshmen there who are ready to go. You mentioned that safety spot is going to be really intriguing because you got a Peyton Williams who's been a solid contributor since he's been here and knows the system, knows all that. So I think you have to imagine he's going to be somewhere in that rotation. But you can sit there and think about a Kendall Daniels and Jazavian Current safety duo. That's a big safety duo. You got, just size and speed in that group. But I don't think you need to count out David Busey. That guy's can go be entering year 3 in the program. That guy that I think they really like is he'll use a Muschampism, put his face in the fan. He'll go in there.
He likes it.
Yeah, he'll go down there and he'll play in the line of scrimmage. There's a few times he played last year where he's blitzing. He's coming from safety and he's blitzing the quarterback. So I really like him and have liked him since high school. I think he's going to have every shot to be in that rotation. If I'm having to choose one to really watch, I think it's Kendall Daniels. I think he just fits perfectly, and a guy that can be, even if you have a Peyton Williams and Kendall Daniels combination there, that's still some pretty good size in there. But they threw him in there in their little, I think it was their dime package late in the season. Kendall Daniels was in there playing some in key moments in that dime package. So I think he's just continuing to build, and so I think he's the one to watch. But Current's just a guy that could just end up being that he's just too much of a playmaker and a guy that I think he picks it up, learns very easily, can pick up that system easily. He's been recruited and committed to South Carolina for a while, so he's been learning that playbook and things like that. So it's really interesting to watch. It's another one of those positions, kind of like we're talking about with D tackle, where there's really quality depth, but then you feel like with whoever you choose to be out there at that safety spot, you'd have to feel pretty good about with the competition in that room.
And with what we've seen in the past, like from DQ Smith, who was a high school quarterback, who really didn't play a lot of defensive back.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got a guy that's a taller, probably a better athlete than Tristan Lewis.
Yeah.
Who's come in, right? And I can't dismiss him because of what we've seen. Nick Emanwari as a true freshman, DQ Smith as a true freshman, Jalen Kilgore as a true freshman. I mean, we've seen it time and time again at the safety positions, even at the nickel, a guy that is not even on the radar, and all of a sudden somebody goes down and that guy's in the starting lineup and he ain't coming out until he goes to the NFL draft.
And I think with those freshman safeties with Peyton Lewis and Tristan Lewis and Xavier Kearns, like physicality is not something you have to worry about with those guys. Like they'll come down and hit you, kind of like we're talking about with David Busey. But I think it's just going to be like, the safety. There's so many things you have to be aware of, and like you can't let guys get behind you and things like that, because if safety lets a guy get behind them, like the band could be playing pretty quickly. So that's just something you have to watch for, like how quickly can they pick up the playbook. But with those two guys specifically, both playing quarterback too. Both those guys were quarterbacks at South Point and in Greenwood. Like I think that's something that will help them pick up that playbook. And Torian Gray has shown, like, if needed be, like he can get those guys ready to play from game one.
No doubt about it. Alex, I've kept you too long. Great stuff. As always, so appreciative of your time and you coming on and dropping knowledge and analysis on the podcast. Gamecocks in a late one tonight, so I guess that's whittle duty. So you can be in the bed at 10:00 and not worry about that. But all the best, my friend, and we'll look forward to catching up with you down the road.
Always enjoy being on. See you next time.
You got it. All right, that was Alex Jones. And today's show is brought to you by the award-winning full-service catering company servicing the greater Charlotte area. I'm talking about Nana's Porch. That's your go-to for all your catering needs, whether it's a banquet, a wedding, a corporate event, a rehearsal dinner, a birthday, wedding, engagement, or anniversary celebration, whatever your catering needs, Nana's Porch has got you covered. So go to the homepage, nanasporch.com. That's nanasporch.com. Get in touch with my good friend Chris Payne. Tell him the good folks at Gamecock Pod Live sent you. Get on the calendar. Wedding season is right around the corner. Okay, and they cater all sorts of events. They have a wide variety of menus. You can customize your menu. Customer service is second to none. You cannot go wrong with Nana's Porch. So go to the homepage, nanasporch.com. Get in touch with my good friend, Chris Payne. You can also support this Gamecock-owned and operated business, even if you don't have a catering event, by going to the homepage and looking up at the top bar across the top of the homepage. Find pimento cheese. Click on that. It'll take you to a hyperlink where you can order one or both of Nana's Porch award-winning flavors of pimento cheese. The great regular flavor, my personal favorite, the smoky jalapeno. They are shipped directly to your front porch, affordably priced, and checkout is simple, safe, and secure. Nana's Porch award-winning pimento cheese. You'll love it. I guarantee it. All right, so going to talk a little women's basketball here. I'd like to say congratulations to Vic Schaefer and the Texas Longhorns. Vic Schaefer got his first ever postseason win against Dawn Staley. 1-8 all time. South Carolina raced through the SEC 15-1. They won it by 2 games, plus they had the tiebreaker on Texas and Vanderbilt, who slipped up, and then Ole Miss, LSU. And so they got the number 1 seed in the SEC tournament. And so you like to think, hey, we won the conference. We got the easiest route to the championship game. Well, this year it is the case most years, but that was not the case this year for South Carolina. They had to face Kentucky with Clara Strack, a 6'6" setter that can shoot threes, that can post up, that can block shots. They have really good guards. They like to push the tempo. But South Carolina did get them on their 3rd straight game, and the Gamecocks rolled them. No problem. 87-64, something like that. No starter, had to play over 27 minutes. Joyce Edwards, really good. Raven Johnson, Tania Latson. Then South Carolina takes on LSU on Saturday night in the semifinals. And LSU led at halftime. South Carolina did not have a very good second quarter. They came out in the second half with a 10-2 run, and LSU never retook the lead. The game was tied one time, and South Carolina won it 79-72. But I got to say this about LSU and Kim Mulkey is Kim Mulkey in the postgame talked about, well, I've only been in the SEC for 5 years. Well, so what? That's 5 years. She was trying to compare it to Dawn Staley, 18 years. No, dude, I'm sorry. That does not play anymore. Okay. Plus, she coached at Baylor 21 years and won 3 national championships. The inmates are running the asylum in Baton Rouge. Okay. You saw multiple dust ups with players. You saw it with the starting center, and she got into it with Malaysia Fulwiley, Michaela Williams, and Malaysia Fulwiley had words. There were words in the huddle one time. And so South Carolina is up 5 with 45 seconds to go. The strategy is you want to get a hard trap in the backcourt, and if you don't get it, then you want to foul. LSU had only committed 2 fouls. South Carolina was going to have to throw the ball back in bounds successfully 3 more times before they would shoot free throws. Maybe you get a steal on one of those. You get a held ball, and it's your ball. LSU's players ignored their head coach. They say that evidently they didn't hear her. But that was because there was too much bickering going on in the huddle, and Flau'jae Johnson, her lower lip was stuck out so far from pouting. If it would have started raining inside that building, she would have probably had like 2 or 3 gallons of water go straight down her throat. LSU has now lost their top assistant, who's becoming the head coach at Rutgers, their top recruiter. He's gone. Kim Mulkey, once again, for the second game against South Carolina, burned her final timeout when she didn't need to. Dawn Staley was calling timeout to advance the ball, and Kim Mulkey had to call another timeout to make sure to tell their players to foul. Too little, too late at that point, because South Carolina ran the shot clock all the way down, and Big Mamba, Medina Okot, got the ball at the end of the shot clock, held it for 3 or 4 seconds, and then left hand dribbled and made a sweeping left-handed layup off the glass that essentially ended it for LSU. Yet Michaela Williams came down and hit a three. That cut it to 4. But then LSU had no more timeouts. And to end the game, Tanai Latson gets a layup. So Texas, they played Alabama in the first round. Vanderbilt got upset, but I mean, let's face it, Vanderbilt, South Carolina housed them. They were up by 36 points at home when Dawn Staley emptied the bench, and the final score was 103-74. So Ole Miss, they beat Vanderbilt. They jumped on them 20-0. It was 25-3 at the end of the first quarter. Shea Ralph got ejected from the game in the third quarter because they were calling fouls on her star player, Michaela Blakes. So Texas, they played Alabama and Ole Miss. Now, I'm not making any excuses. Both teams had to play 3 games in 3 days. South Carolina had a blowout win. They got to rest their starters the fourth quarter. The LSU game was very taxing because that's probably South Carolina's biggest rivalry game in the SEC right now, because you got Dawn Staley and Kim Mulkey. They got 7 national championships between them. Malaysia Fulwiley is at LSU, and Kim Mulkey just thought she was going to come in and crash the party and be the queen of the SEC. That ain't happening. But all credit to Texas. They jumped on South Carolina 14-0, and it was 27-12 at the end of the first quarter. Texas shot over 68%. They were 13 for 19. Justice Carlton, who I think had 8 points, 5 or 8 points in the first 2 games. She had 13 first quarter points. South Carolina starters just appeared lethargic. Tanai Latson said they had dead legs. They were fatigued. And Texas, they just put it on South Carolina. And I give Texas all the credit on that. My biggest, and really the only thing I have to say that would be in a negative light about Dawn Staley's team is there's no effective press offense. South Carolina, they could not get the ball across midcourt against South Carolina. They struggled mightily last year in the SEC tournament, in the Final Four earlier this year in Las Vegas, but more recently just in Columbia. South Carolina had several 5-second violations. They had several turnovers off Texas's full court press, and South Carolina made no adjustments. They had no answer for Texas press. And I thought all 5 of South Carolina's starters, they were just not the same in that game. Now, I will say what was encouraging about that is, number one, Texas was picked to win the regular season, and they didn't do it. South Carolina did. South Carolina all season long has been playing without Chloe Kitts and Ashlyn Watkins. And I don't think anybody even takes that into consideration, because Joyce Edwards has scored 20 points a game. Medina Okot, until the last 2 games, 7 of the 8 quarters that she played in the semifinals and the finals were not good at all. She did have a great fourth quarter, scoring 6 points in that LSU game. But the Texas game, 2 points. She only had 2 points going into the fourth quarter of the LSU game. But she did have a double-double. She did impose her will on defense. But I thought Maddie McDaniel, her play in the regular season, in the SEC tournament, against LSU, against Texas, big minutes. Maddie Mouse was a McDonald's All-American for a reason. She's healthy. She's confident. You can see it. Agot McKeer, a top 5 player. Long, athletic, can go to the rim, can facilitate as a point guard, can shoot the 3. She's going to be a great player. And Allie Turnaby's, they turned her loose. She had 6 points. She led the team in rebounding, 7 rebounds. That's 2 more than Joyce Edwards had. And so I think South Carolina's depth going into the NCAA tournament. I will say this. Tessa Johnson, I found out after the fact, had a hip injury and a sore knee. So she was not 100% at all on Championship Sunday. They all have 2 weeks. They got this week off. They'll come back on Friday, Dawn Staley said, to practice. They'll be able to get some lifts in, get some off days in, get some practice in, sharpen the saw, so to speak. When you have that much time, you really work on individual skills, doing the little things, sharpening the saw, really getting the little things down, execution on your sideline out of bounds, your baseline out of bounds, your go-to set plays, your 1-3-1 defense, things of that nature. You get to work on that. And then Sunday night, you'll get to find out who you've got, and you'll either play on Thursday, Saturday, or Friday, Sunday. So it's the NCAA tournament consists of 3 weekends of 2-game tournaments, and there's a day in between. So if you play on Thursday, you play on Saturday. You get Friday off. If you play on Friday, you get Saturday off. You play on Sunday. There's no 3 games in 3 days. There's no dead legs. You get a day off in between. Then the first weekend will be in Columbia. South Carolina will get 2 home games. They're probably going to go to Sacramento. Texas has the 3 best wins in the country. They beat UCLA. That's UCLA's only loss. And they beat South Carolina twice. In November, Texas beat UCLA and South Carolina. The South Carolina game was a buzzer beater. That game's really a toss-up. South Carolina beat Texas in the regular season. Texas wins the SEC tournament. They're probably going to get rewarded and go to Fort Worth. South Carolina will go to Sacramento and be the 4th overall number 1 seed. So it looks like it'll be UConn 1, UCLA 2, Texas 3, South Carolina 4. So you're going to have to play UConn anyway if you want to win the national championship. Does it really matter if it's the semifinals or the finals? And then UCLA and Texas will play. I personally think UCLA should be the number 1 overall seed. I looked at the net ranking last night, and UCLA in quad 1 games, 18-1. UConn 9-0, and UConn 20 of their wins, quad 3 and quad 4 wins. Yes, they are undefeated, but they have not played anybody this calendar year. All their tough games were in December. By the time they played Tennessee, Tennessee was falling off the cliff. They beat them by 30, and then South Carolina beat them by 43, which was their worst loss in program history. UCLA has twice as many quad 1 wins as UConn. South Carolina and Texas, you take quad 1, quad 2, they have identical records, 17-3. But Texas gets the head-to-head nod with 2 out of 3 wins. And so, can South Carolina win a national championship? Absolutely. Yes, they can. They've got to get better, but it's essentially 6 one-game seasons. It's 3 weekend tournaments, 2-game tournaments. That's what it is. The first 2 at home. The last time South Carolina went to California, they were in the Stockton Regional in 2017. They advanced to Dallas, and they won the national championship. Also, the last time South Carolina lost in the SEC tournament finals, they won the national championship in 2022. So, look, everything is out there. And next year, yes, you are going to lose Miriam Dowda. You're going to lose Raven Johnson. You're going to lose Tanaya Latson. But you also, Medina Okot may very well return. Ashlyn Watkins and Chloe Kitts are coming back. And you probably have the best guard in the country in Jersey Robinson, who broke Juju Watkins' records at Sierra Canyon High School, and who's still 17 years old. She won't be 18 until she enrolls. She's one of the 5 semifinalists for the National High School Player of the Year. And South Carolina signed 3 of the top 18 players, according to ESPN, Kaylee Wynn and Kelsey Andrews. And then Allie Turnabees came in January. Isla McDowell is going to do nothing but get better. Agot McKeer is going to do nothing but get better. Jersey Robinson's coming in. Maddie McDaniel's back. Tessa Johnson is back. You got a lot of guards back. And you're bringing in probably the best all-around guard in the country. Joyce Edwards is back. Medina Okot may very well be back. Hopefully Adele Tack can finally get healthy, but then bringing back Chloe Kitts and Ashlyn Watkins. This program is going nowhere, folks. They will be a Final Four, SEC championship, national championship contender for the foreseeable future. All right, so that's a wrap on today's show. Thanks to Alex Jones, and thanks to all of you. We'll be back with some Five Guys segments on Gamecock Pod daily tomorrow and Friday, and then Sunday will be Sunday morning coffee talk. March Madness begins on March the 19th. I'm on vacation. I'm going to Las Vegas, to Caesar's Palace, to the sports book to watch all the games, maybe place some prop bets, and enjoy the company of a friend I've known for almost 40 years, catch up with him, see his family, and have a great time watching March Madness. But we'll be back next Wednesday. I guess that'll be the last show we'll have and then we'll be off from the 19th through the 24th. Maybe we'll have a Gamecock Pod live from my hotel room in Caesar's Palace. So until tomorrow and until next week, this has been episode number 1969 of Gamecock Pod Live. Go Gamecocks. God bless. And God bless America and protect our troops. I'm out of here.